Rain hammered against the windshield of the black SUV as Evan Brooks sped along the slick lanes of Interstate 5, the Seattle skyline dissolving into a blur of headlights and neon reflections. The night air felt heavy with judgment. He had just left the Northwest Tech and Innovation Gala, where he had endured an entire evening of forced smiles and silent condemnation over the mass layoff his company had executed 10 days earlier. 300 people cut to keep a failing division alive. Social media had crucified him for it. Activists had protested outside the gala. Even shareholders had begun whispering doubts behind closed doors. Evan gripped the steering wheel tighter, jaw-locked, trying to drown out the endless noise. He had made hard decisions his entire life, but tonight the weight of them pressed on him harder than usual. His phone buzzed with notifications, each one an insult or a threat, each one a reminder that the world no longer saw him as a visionary, but as a villain. He ignored the buzzing until one message flashed from his assistant. "The board wants an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Do not be late." He exhaled sharply, as if he needed another crisis. Rain slashed across the road, harder now, and traffic slowed, brake lights forming a river of red stretching toward downtown. Evan loosened his collar chest, tight mind drifting. To the one face he kept trying not to remember. Maya Ellis, 27, logistics specialist, fired last week. The HR report had labeled her termination as insubordination and violation of conduct. In reality, she had stood up for a coworker who claimed harassment from a senior manager. She was brave, reckless maybe, but honest in a way that unsettled him then and still unsettled him now. He had barely looked at her during the exit meeting, refusing to let her eyes force him to question the decision. He did not have the luxury of second-guessing. Not as the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation built on precision and efficiency, but the image of her leaving the building with her box of belongings soaked in unexpected rain had lingered in him like a bruise he could not ignore. The storm worsened, and Evan snapped back to the road. A large semi-truck ahead of him drifted slightly out of its lane, and the driver flicked on hazard lights. Evan slowed, cautious. Then everything happened at once. A blast of wind. The truck fishtailed. Tires screeched across wet asphalt. Headlights swerved. Evan jerked the wheel instinctively. The SUV hydroplaned spun, lifted, and slammed sideways into the guardrail. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The world flipped twice before the vehicle crashed upside down into the median. For a moment there was nothing but smoke and the ringing echo of impact. Evan hung suspended by his seatbelt, dazed, his lungs fighting for breath. Rain poured in through the cracked windows, mixing with the acrid smell of burning wires. He tried to move, but pain exploded across his ribs and shoulder. Outside cars slowed, but no one stopped. A few drivers pointed phones toward the wreckage, filming content for their feeds. Someone yelled, "Hey, is anyone alive?" but no one stepped closer. Evan clenched his teeth, trying to free himself, but the belt held tight, and every movement sent another bolt of pain through him. He felt consciousness slip. Then he heard it, a voice cutting through the storm. "Somebody help him, please." A figure splashed through the rain toward the wreck. A woman, small frame, dark hair plastered to her cheeks, determination burning in her eyes. She reached the shattered window and peered inside, her breath catching when she saw his face. Evan. It took him a moment to recognize her through the haze. Maya climbed onto the side of the overturned SUV, ignoring the shards of glass slicing her palms. She braced one hand against the doorframe and used a tire iron someone had dropped nearby to pry the jammed door open. She slipped halfway into the vehicle, hands trembling but steady. "Stay with me, Evan. Do not shut your eyes." Her voice pulled him back from the darkness. She pressed her shoulder against his to support him as she fought with the seatbelt. Rainwater dripped down her jaw and onto his shirt. He could feel her breath against his cheek. The intimacy of the moment struck him sharply and absurdly, despite the danger he found comfort in it. With one hard pull, the belt snapped free. Maya dragged him out of the SUV just as smoke thickened behind them. She held his face in both hands, guiding his head upright so he would not collapse again. "Look at me, Evan, stay awake, stay awake." The world around them blurred into the rush of sirens and flashing lights. People had finally begun to gather, but most still recorded instead of helping. One bystander filmed Maya holding him, and the camera captured an angle that made it look staged, like she was clinging to a billionaire for attention. The footage would be edited and posted online within minutes. Evan felt his vision dimming, and the rain fell harder, washing blood from his temple. Through every flicker of consciousness, he saw only her face. Maya whispered again, voice shaking with emotion he could not quite name. "I have you, Evan. I will not let you die." The last thing he felt before the darkness claimed him was the warmth of her hands and the terrifying realization that the girl he fired last week might be the only person willing to save him. Evan woke to the rhythmic beep of a heart monitor and the sterile scent of antiseptic drifting through the dim hospital room. His ribs throbbed with every breath, his left arm was strapped in a sling, and a jagged line of stitches tugged uncomfortably at his temple. For a long moment he stared at the ceiling disoriented, trying to piece together the fractured images in his mind. Rain, screeching tires, the violent spin of metal, and then her, Maya, the girl he had fired, the girl who should have walked past him without a second glance, yet had been the only person brave enough to pull him from the wreck. He shifted slightly, and pain flared up his side, forcing a low groan from his throat. The sound drew attention from the hallway. Footsteps approached, then paused at the door, as if the visitor was unsure whether to enter. Evan turned his head weakly and saw her. Maya stood in the doorway, still damp around the edges, as though she had not fully dried after the storm. Her jeans were stained with mud, her hands wrapped in bandages that told the story of broken glass and desperate courage. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. She seemed almost afraid to step closer. When she did, her eyes flicked toward the floor, avoiding his. "You are awake," she whispered. He swallowed his voice raw. "You saved me." Maya shook her head quickly, as if refusing credit. Someone had to help. The words pierced him more deeply than she intended. He had spent years surrounded by people who acted because they were paid, to not because they cared. Yet she had risked her life to reach him. And she was someone he had failed. He tried to sit up, but pain forced him back. Maya moved instinctively as if to support him, then stopped pulling her hands back to her sides. A nurse rushed in, checking monitors, adjusting IV lines. Maya stepped away, shrinking into the corner of the room. Evan watched her closely. Something about her posture was different. She was not the confident woman he remembered from the day she challenged HR. She looked fragile. The nurse finished adjusting his vitals and left without acknowledging her. Maya released a breath and moved toward the doorway. "I should go," she said quietly. "You are safe now." Evan pushed through the fog in his mind. "Wait." She froze but did not turn back. "You were here all night," he said slowly. "I heard the doctors talking. You stayed." She hesitated, shoulders taut. "You were alone, that was all." Then she walked out before he could say another word. A few hours later, he received the first blow. His assistant entered with a tablet filled with headlines. Viral video from the crash scene, showing Maya holding him as if embracing him. The clip conveniently edited to hide the shattered glass on her hands and the smoke billowing behind them. Comment sections erupted with accusations. Girl stages emotional rescue for fame. Fired employee clings to billionaire for views. Who is she, and why is she touching him? Twitter turned her into a target in less than a day. Evan felt a punch of anger rise in his chest. She saved his life, and they were calling her a manipulator. His assistant's voice broke through his thoughts. "Sir, there is more. She lost her new job this morning. The company is trying to avoid PR complications." Evan squeezed his eyes shut, guilt spreading through him like poison. She should never have been dragged back into his world. She had already suffered enough because of him. He waited until he was cleared for limited movement, then called for a car to bring her in. When Maya arrived, she walked into the hospital room with a stiff expression, arms crossed, as if bracing for another blow. "You wanted to see me," she said without greeting. He nodded. "I need to talk to you about the video." Her jaw tightened. "Of course, everyone has seen it. They think I ran into the middle of a freeway to chase clout. People always believe the worst." Evan shook his head. "They are wrong, I know that." Her laugh was soft but hollow. "Does it matter what you know? The world saw what it wanted to see. And honestly, sir, with all due respect, this is your world, not mine." Evan flinched at the formal address. She had never called him sir before the firing. "Maya," he began, but she cut him off. "I am not here for money or press or forgiveness. You asked me to come, so I came. Say what you need to say." He stared at her, bruised palms wrapped in bandages, the marks of what she had done for him. "I want to help fix this." She shook her head. "No, I do not want anything from you." "Maya, please listen. Your firing was wrong. I should have looked into what happened. HR lied to me. Caldwell distorted your report. I know that now." Her body stiffened, but her voice stayed calm. "So what, you cannot unfire me. You cannot undo the whispers. You cannot make people forget my face in that stupid video." He tried to lift his arm, but pain shot through him, and he winced involuntarily. Maya stepped forward instinctively as if to help, but caught herself and stepped back. He noticed. The tension between them felt like a live wire. "I am sorry, Maya," he said quietly. "I am truly sorry." She stared at him for a long moment, eyes reflecting exhaustion and hurt he had never bothered to see before. Finally, she whispered, "It is too late for sorry." She turned to leave. On her way out of the building, she passed employees in the hallway, many of whom recognized her. A pair of nurses whispered loudly enough for her to hear. "That is the girl from the video. Probably planned the whole thing." Another woman smirked. Would not be the first gold digger in Seattle. Maya kept walking, chin high but eyes glistening. Evan saw none of it until later, when he scrolled through social media and found a picture someone had taken of her in the hall shoulders, slumped as she exited. Something inside him twisted painfully. He closed the app and stared at the window, fogged with rain. She walked away today because she had no reason to stay, and the crushing truth settled in his chest like a weight he could not lift. He had not just failed her. He had broken something in her long before the crash, something he did not know how to repair. And as he watched the rain streak down the glass, he wondered if he even deserved the chance to try. Evan Brooks sat in the executive wing of Brooks Global, 2 days after being discharged from the hospital. His chest still bound beneath his shirt, and every breath a painful reminder of the night everything changed. A folder lay open before him, containing HR reports, witness statements, and internal emails related to Maya Ellis. He had read them a dozen times. Each page made him feel sicker than the cracked ribs ever could. Caldwell had buried complaints, threatened employees, fabricated reasons to justify terminations. Maya had stood up for a coworker who was being harassed by a senior logistics manager, and instead of being protected, she had been labeled insubordinate and dismissed. Evans stared at her photo in the file taken the day she was hired 3 years earlier. Her smile wide and bright eyes full of hope. He had stolen that from her without even looking closely. He shut the file and pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to calm the frustration rising in his blood. He had built his empire on efficiency and logic, not cruelty. Yet somehow cruelty had seeped in through every crack when he was not looking. He sent for her. She arrived an hour later, escorted by a nervous intern who seemed terrified to speak in the presence of the CEO. Maya stepped into his office, cautiously refusing to sit, even when Evan gestured toward the chair. Her posture was guarded, arms folded across her chest, her gaze fixed on some invisible point behind him. He studied her in silence for a moment, noticing details he had ignored before. Her clothes were clean but worn, her hair pulled back, in a simple tie as if she had rushed here from somewhere else. The bandages on her palms were fresh. Her eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. She nodded without replying. "I reviewed your file, everything about your termination, and I know the truth now. Caldwell lied to me. HR covered for him. You should not have been fired." Her expression did not change. She simply said, "That does not give me my life back." He leaned forward, slightly winced when pain shot through his ribs, then forced himself to meet her eyes. "I know, but I want to make this right. I can compensate you. I can help you get your reputation cleared. Just tell me what you need." Maya let out a soft breath, almost a laugh, but without any humor. "Compensation cannot erase what happened at my last job. And reputation." She gestured vaguely toward the window, where the city sprawled beyond the glass. "The internet does not forget, sir." Evan tried again, choosing his words carefully. "Maya, you saved my life. I owe you something." She shook her head. "Saving you does not mean you owe me. I did what any decent human being would." His eyes flicked to her hands. "Most people filmed instead of helping. You are not most people." She shifted uncomfortably. "That is not the point. The point is my life is not a debt you need to pay. I do not want your money, and I do not want your pity." He bristled slightly. "This is not pity. This is responsibility." "No," she corrected firmly. "This is guilt, and guilt is not a foundation for anything good." Her bluntness stung. Evan exhaled slowly. "What happened to you here should never have happened. Let me fix it, please." She narrowed her eyes, studying him as if trying to see past the polished exterior he had worn for years. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Why not the day you fired me? Why not the day I walked out in the rain, and you did not even look up from your papers?" Evan inhaled sharply. "I cannot change that moment. I cannot undo the decisions I made when I trusted the wrong people. But I can do something now if you let me." Her voice grew tight with emotion she was trying desperately to contain. "I lost my job. I lost my friends. I lost my reputation. And you lost a little sleep. That is not equal." He looked down ashamed because she was right. Yet he could not walk away from the chance to try again. "What if I reopened your case publicly?" he said. "What if I cleared your name on record?" Maya interrupted him, shaking her head. "That would make everything worse. You are trending again because of your crash. Anything you say about me will add fuel to the rumors. People think I staged the rescue. They think I am desperate. They think I am clinging to the man who fired me. Nothing you say will erase that." Evan opened his mouth, but she continued, voice quieter now. "You cannot fix this with money or press releases or guilt. You cannot walk into my life and try to rebuild it the way you would a damaged building. People do not work like that." Her words hit him harder than any public criticism had. For a moment he felt genuinely helpless, a sensation he had not felt since he was young and broke and terrified of failing. He looked at her and spoke with an honesty that surprised even himself. "I do not want to rebuild your life. I want to repair what my company broke. What I allowed to happen because I did not look close enough." She lowered her gaze, then lifted it again. Slowly, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "If you really wanted to make things right," she said, "you would look beyond the file. You would look at the people who still work here, the ones who are too afraid to speak up, the ones Caldwell has been hurting for years, and you would fix that." Evan paused, absorbing her words. Then he said quietly, "You are right. I will." She did not expect that. He could see it in her startled expression, but the guardedness returned just as quickly. "That is your responsibility, Mr. Brooks, and it has nothing to do with me." He stood slowly, gripping the edge of the desk for balance. "I want to ask you something. Not about money, not about a job, just a question." She waited silently. "Why did you save me that night?" Maya drew a breath, her voice softening for the first time. "Because everyone else kept filming. Because you were trapped. Because no one deserves to die alone on a highway. Because my father taught me that if you can help someone, you help them even if it hurts." Evan's throat tightened. Her father sounds like a good man. She smiled faintly. He was. She turned to leave. Her hand was on the door handle when Evan spoke again. Voice lower, trembling just slightly. "Maya, one more thing." She looked back at him. "Thank you, not for saving my life, for not giving up on what is right, even when the entire world made you pay for it." For a moment, something unspoken passed between them, a flicker of understanding or recognition or something he could not name. Then she nodded once without smiling. "I will not take your money," she repeated. "I will not take anything from you." She walked out, leaving him alone in the echoing silence. Evan's gaze dropped to the bandage on his left hand, remembering her grasp pulling him from the wreck. Her voice whispering, "Stay with me." Her refusal now felt like another pain, but one he deserved. He sank into his chair, staring at the empty doorway. She would not take his money. She would not take his help. But somehow her presence had taken hold of him anyway. settling into the spaces he had long ignored. He did not know why he cared so fiercely. He only knew this: he could not let her walk away again. Evan Brooks had always believed he was immune to fear. Fear was for people without control, without power, without contingency plans. He had spent 20 years building an empire on rationality and efficiency, leaving no room for panic or vulnerability. Yet now fear stalked him like a shadow he could not outrun. It began the moment he returned to his penthouse. The first night home, he jolted awake at the sound of a car honking 12 stories below. His throat tightened. His heartbeat surged. He tasted metal, the same metallic panic he had felt trapped upside down in the SUV. He tried to stand, but his legs buckled. He leaned against the wall chest, heaving sweat dripping down his spine, even though the room was cold. The second night, the screech of brakes from the street sent him curling into himself, on the edge of the bed, breath coming in sharp, shallow bursts. The third night, a delivery truck rumbled past the building, and Evan collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably, his palms slick, his vision tunneling. He realized then, with a sickening certainty, that something inside him had broken open during the crash. The man who once walked into boardrooms without blinking now trembled at the memory of crushed metal and spinning headlights. His doctor confirmed it during a follow-up exam. Post-traumatic stress responses are very common. After major collisions, especially when there is a prolonged sense of entrapment, your nervous system has not recalibrated yet. It will take time. Evan hated the word vulnerable more than he hated pain. He tried to hide it, tried to work through it, tried to pretend he was fine, but the physical manifestations intensified. Every time he heard tires screech outside his office window, his chest seized. Every time he saw flashing headlights on a television screen, his breath stuttered. His board noticed his shaken composure. His assistant noticed his trembling hands. Even Caldwell smirked at him in a meeting, though Evan could no longer tell if the smirk was real or a projection of paranoia. After the third panic episode in public, the doctor issued a non-negotiable instruction. You need someone with you, not for a day or two, for at least 2 to 3 weeks, someone you trust, someone who can ground you during episodes, someone who can keep you steady during important meetings, someone you feel safe with. Evan wanted to laugh. He trusted no one. He certainly did not feel safe with anyone in the company. He had spent his entire adult life insulating himself from personal reliance. But when the doctor pressed him with a list of options, therapists, executive assistants, medical companions, Evan found himself rejecting every name, except one. He thought of the highway, the rain, the sound of her voice pulling him back from the darkness. Stay with me, Evan. He thought of the way her hand anchored him in the chaos, of how her presence steadied him even when she was furious with him. Maya, the one person he had wronged most deeply, yet the only person who had run toward him instead of away. The doctor studied his expression and nodded as if understanding something unspoken. If there is someone who calms your body's response, even once consider that your nervous system has already chosen its anchor. Evan's jaw tightened. His pride revolted at the idea. But his body knew the truth before his mind admitted it. Maya Ellis was the only person whose presence had cut through the panic. He contacted her the next day. She arrived at Brooks Global, reluctantly, her guard fully raised. "This is not a job offer," she said before he could speak. "I told you I am done with this place." Evan shook his head. This is not about the company. This is about me. She frowned, confused but wary. He exhaled slowly and forced the truth out of his chest. The crash did something to me. I am not sleeping. I cannot stay grounded. I cannot step into crowded places without feeling like the world is collapsing. The words felt humiliating leaving his mouth, but Maya did not laugh. She did not smirk. She did not look triumphant. She simply softened around the edges in a way that hit him unexpectedly hard. That is normal, she said gently. Trauma rewires the brain. It is not weakness, it is impact. He swallowed. My doctor wants me to have someone with me. Someone I trust. Someone who can help if my body reacts. She stared at him, stunned. But why would that be me? You have assistance. You have security. You have a team. Evan shook his head. They make it worse. I feel watched, not safe. And you, when you are near, I breathe. Maya blinked as if the admission cut too close. Do not say things like that. You do not mean them. I do, he said quietly. Her shoulders stiffened as she crossed her arms. So what exactly are you asking I need your help? A companion contract, temporary, strict boundaries, no personal obligations, just someone to steady me through episodes. Maya stepped back, clearly overwhelmed. Absolutely not. Evan resisted the instinct to argue. You would be paid for your time, all expenses covered. Maya raised a hand, cutting him off sharply. I said no. I am not taking your money. I am not becoming some emotional support accessory for the man who fired me. Evan felt heat rise in his chest, not anger exactly, but something desperate. This is not about money. This is about survival. I would not ask if I had another option. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, breathing slowly. When she opened them again, her voice was quieter. You should not depend on me. You barely know me. That is not true, he said. I know more about you than I allowed myself to see. I know you stand up for people, even when it costs you everything. I know you do not run from pain. I know you were the only one on that highway who did not treat me like content for your feed. Maya's throat bobbed. You are asking me to put myself back into the orbit of a company that destroyed my life. He nodded. Yes, and I do not expect forgiveness, just help. Temporary, you set the rules. Silence stretched between them, heavy with conflicting truths. Finally, Maya spoke. If I do this, we have conditions. Evan straightened. Anything. No touching unless necessary. Agreed. No barking orders. Agreed. No saving face by pretending we are close. Agreed. No promises beyond this arrangement. Agreed. She studied him carefully as if searching for deception. Then she added softly, almost reluctantly, If you get worse, I stop. Evan nodded. Understood. Maya sighed a long defeated exhale. Fine. Temporary. A few weeks. Then I disappear from your world for good. Relief washed over him so intensely he nearly slumped. Thank you, Maya. She looked away quickly as if afraid to meet the sincerity in his eyes. Her voice was barely audible. Do not thank me yet. That night, the first test came sooner than either expected. After the building closed, Evan attempted to leave through the underground parking garage. A truck backfired somewhere nearby. The echo ricocheted off the concrete walls like an explosion. Evan froze violently, gripping the railing as his chest tightened and his breath caught. The world blurred. The sound of crushed metal roared in his ears. His knees buckled. Before he collapsed, a hand closed firmly around his. Maya's voice pierced through the rising panic, clear and steady. Evan, look at me. You are not in the car. You are here. Breathe with me, in and out. Her grip anchored him just like before, warm, steady, real. His body responded before his mind could. Breath by breath, his muscles began to unclench until the tremors slowed. When he finally met her gaze, her eyes were full of something he could not name. Fear, strength, compassion, or something even more dangerous. Please, he whispered voice, raw, do not let go. I am right here, she whispered back. And she did not. The first week of their arrangement unfolded like a fragile dance. Neither of them fully understood a rhythm born from necessity rather than choice. Evan found himself relying on Maya in ways that stripped him of everything he once believed about strength and independence, and Maya found herself thrust into a world she had sworn never to touch again. Every morning she arrived at his penthouse with quiet professionalism, carrying a notebook and a calmness that seemed to steady the very air around him. She prepared a schedule so he would know exactly what each day required. Predictability helped reduce panic, she explained, and though Evan bristled at the idea of needing something so basic, he followed her guidance because it worked. She reminded him when to breathe, when to take breaks, when his grip tightened too suddenly around the armrest of his office chair. She noticed shifts in his breathing before he did. She learned his rhythms quickly, the way his shoulders tensed, before an episode the way his eyes darted toward exits whenever the noise outside spiked. But she never coddled him. She never treated him like he was fragile. She treated him like someone fighting to stay upright. And for the first time since the crash, Evan felt capable of standing again. But the calm they built existed only within the walls of his world. The moment they stepped outside, chaos followed. It began with a charity dinner hosted by the Washington Tech Coalition. Evan had initially declined the invitation because he knew the lights, the cameras, the crowd would overwhelm him. But the board insisted because his absence would be seen as weakness. He debated refusing until Maya said something that surprised him. You cannot hide forever, Evan. Sometimes facing one fear keeps the others from growing too big. She spoke it gently but with conviction. And he found himself agreeing because she was right. The night of the event, Maya arrived in a simple black dress that looked understated yet elegant, her hair loosely tied back. She had not dressed for attention, but for function, and Evan appreciated the steadiness of her presence more than he could explain. When their car pulled up to the valet line outside the event, Evan felt the familiar pressure tighten in his chest. Maya noticed immediately. She placed a hand lightly on his forearm, grounding him without making a scene. You are fine, she murmured. Just breathe. He focused on her voice, and the world steadied enough for him to step out of the car. Camera flashes erupted instantly. Reporters shouted questions. Evan flinched as the glare streaked across his vision like headlights before a crash. His breath hitched, his heart lurched. Maya stepped closer, her body shielding part of his field of view. Evan, focus on something still, she whispered. Pick one thing. My voice, my face, anything that does not move. He chose her eyes. Gray-blue lights blurred behind him, but her quiet presence held him steady long enough for them to walk into the ballroom without incident. But the challenge was far from over. Inside the event, conversations halted when people noticed the woman walking beside Evan. The whispers were immediate and vicious. That's the girl from the video, the one who staged the dramatic rescue. Logan from HR said she faked the whole thing. I heard she's back on his payroll. Of course she is. Women like that always are. Evan heard every word like shards of glass driven under his skin. He wanted to turn around and silence them all, but Maya kept walking. Shoulders squared chin high, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. She leaned toward him slightly, whispering, "You cannot fight everyone. Let it go." But he could not, because she was absorbing the cruelty meant for him, and because she had already endured far too much. When they approached the main table, Evan's business rival, Nicholas Hartwell, rose from his seat with a smirk. Well, if it isn't the man of the hour, and his lovely companion. Evan's jaw tightened. Maya kept her expression neutral, though he sensed the tension in her body. Hartwell extended his hand to her without looking at her, as if she were an accessory instead of a person. "And you must be the famous Maya Ellis." Evan stepped slightly between them, forcing Hartwell to lower his hand. "That's enough," he said, voice low. Hartwell raised an eyebrow. "I was only welcoming your date." "She is not his date," someone behind them muttered loudly enough for others to hear. "She's his damage control." The table erupted in soft laughter. Maya exhaled slowly, but stayed composed. Evan, however, felt his pulse spike. He clenched his fists, nails biting into his palms. Maya touched his hand beneath the table, the barest brush of her fingers. "Please," she whispered, "do not make a scene because of me." He forced himself to inhale, then exhale. She was right, but it ate at him. The evening dragged on until finally a small crisis hit. A reporter approached uninvited with a team of photographers and a rehearsed smile. "Mr. Brooks, could we get a few photos?" "Your companion looks stunning tonight." Maya stiffened. Evan's breathing faltered. The reporter continued relentlessly. "Rumors say she staged your rescue for publicity. Could you comment on her involvement and whether you two are seeing each other romantically?" Evan's vision wavered, the room closing in like a tunnel. Tires screeching, headlights smoke. His chest tightened violently. A panic attack hit like a tidal wave. Maya realized instantly. She stepped forward, placing her body between Evan and the flash of cameras. "Enough," she said firmly. "He is done answering questions. Move, we're leaving." She grabbed his arm, anchoring him, guiding him through the maze of tables and bewildered guests. Evan fought for breath, leaning heavily on her, though he hated showing weakness. In the hallway outside the ballroom, the noise faded. Maya pressed his back gently against the wall, her hands steadying his shoulders. "Evan, look at me. Look, right, here." He obeyed. Her eyes were steady, calm. "Breathe with me. In, slow, out, slow." His breath hitched, but gradually fell into rhythm with hers, until the world stopped spinning. When he could finally stand without shaking, Maya released him. Her voice softened. "Do you see now you cannot be among people like them without hurting?" Evan swallowed hard. "I should not have brought you into that room." She shook her head. "I chose to be there, but you cannot pretend their world is harmless. Not anymore." Evan lowered his gaze. "You did not deserve any of what they said." She gave a sad laugh. "Evan, I learned a long time ago that people do not need a reason to tear down a woman who refuses to bow her head." "I still hate that you were the reason they had a target," he said quietly. Maya's expression softened just slightly. "And I hate that you still think you face this alone." They stood in silence for a few seconds until Evan spoke again, voice low. "Maya, earlier when you touched my hand, it was not calculated," she answered. "I just did what felt right." And that one sentence hit him harder than any accusation or praise ever had, because no one in his life had done anything for him simply because it felt right. They always wanted something. They always had an angle. But Maya acted from instinct, compassion, truth. And that terrified him in a way he could not articulate. As they left the venue, paparazzi swarmed the entrance. Evan flinched. Maya stepped closer, shielding him again, whispering, "I am here. Just breathe." And he did, because when Maya said she was there, she meant it. And for the first time in his life, Evan Brooks began to realize that the world he had built was too small and too cold for someone like her. And he feared more than anything that her world and his were colliding in ways neither of them could undo. The storm that hit Evan Brooks did not come from the weather or the accident or even the panic that stalked him through every crowded room. It came from inside the walls he had spent years building, and it struck with the precision of someone who had been planning his downfall for a very long time. It began the morning after the charity event. Evan arrived at Brooks Global with Maya walking a careful step behind him, keeping her presence discreet as they had agreed. She carried her small notebook, dressed simply, trying to blend in, but the whispers followed them through the lobby. Employees pretended to work, but eyes darted, phones hovered slightly raised. Rumors about their appearance at the gala had already flooded the internet overnight, and Caldwell had poured gasoline on the fire. Evan's assistant rushed into the executive office breathless. "Sir, you need to see this." She handed him a tablet. Evan tapped the screen and felt his stomach twist. A headline glared at him from the top of a major business news site. "Scandal inside Brooks Global, former employee allegedly." Trading intimacy for influence. Beneath the headline was a cropped photo from the gala, showing Maya steadying Evan in the hallway during his panic attack. The flash had whitened her face, making her expression impossible to read, but the angle made it look intimate, almost clandestine. The article was filled with anonymous quotes, clearly supplied by Caldwell's circle, claiming Maya had been dismissed for inappropriate behavior, claiming she had seduced the CEO to get her job back, claiming she had been seen entering his penthouse. All lies, all poison. Evan felt heat rise in his chest. His hand shook around the tablet. Maya stood stiffly across the room. She did not ask to see it. She did not have to. The expression in Evan's eyes told her enough. She inhaled slowly, trying to steady herself, but her voice wavered. "It is starting again." He shook his head fiercely. "No, I will stop it. I swear it." But stopping it was not simple, not when his enemies smelled blood. Within hours, the board called an emergency meeting. Evan walked into the conference room with Maya waiting outside, and the moment the door shut, he knew the atmosphere had turned hostile. 12 board members sat around the long glass table, each with a copy of the article. Caldwell was present too, sitting at the far end pretending calm, but radiating smug satisfaction. "Evan, you must see how damaging this is," one board member said. "Our stock is down 4% already," another added. "The public believes you reinstated an employee you had a relationship with. It looks like a cover-up. This situation is unacceptable." Evan gripped the table. "None of it is true." Caldwell shifted in his seat. "The optics are real, though. There are allegations she was involved with a senior manager years ago, which may be connected to her termination." Evan's head snapped toward him. "That is a lie. We both know it." Caldwell smiled thinly. Perception is reality in our industry. Evan took a step forward, ignoring the sharp pain in his ribs. You orchestrated this. You manipulated her file. You buried harassment claims. You fed information to the press. Caldwell lifted his hands as if innocent. Evan, we all know you are under stress. The accident trauma affects judgment. No one blames you. But this situation cannot continue. The board murmured in agreement. Evan felt the room tightening around him like a trap. One board member cleared his throat. We need a temporary measure. In order to protect the company's reputation, we request that you formally sever ties with the employee in question, meaning Maya. Sever ties meant throw her to the wolves. Evan's pulse pounded. He scanned the faces around the table and saw fear, calculation, and opportunism. But not truth, not justice. Caldwell leaned forward. It is the only option. The media has her pegged as a manipulator. Keeping her around will destroy us. Evan's voice dropped to a low, dangerous tone. She saved my life. Caldwell shrugged. And now she will cost you everything else. The board chair finally spoke, with the authority of someone used to ending conversations. We are not asking you to terminate her employment. She is not employed here anymore. We are instructing you to issue a formal statement, distancing the company from her entirely, effective immediately. Evan felt something snap inside him. He wanted to scream no. He wanted to overturn the table. He wanted to expose every lie Caldwell had ever told. But then he pictured the stock crashing. He pictured thousands of workers losing jobs. He pictured his company collapsing. And he pictured Maya's already fragile life destroyed further because of him. The board chair pushed a folder toward him. We need your signature, Evan. It is the only way forward. His hand trembled. Signing it felt like betrayal. Refusing felt like disaster. He picked up the pen slowly. Caldwell watched with barely concealed triumph. Evan pressed the pen to paper and signed. The ink bled into the page like guilt sinking into bone. When the meeting ended, he walked out into the hallway, where Maya sat quietly, reading something on her phone. The moment she saw his face, she stood. What did they say? Evan could not speak for a moment. Then he finally forced the words out. Maya. I had to issue a statement. She waited, eyes sharp. The company is distancing itself from you, effective immediately. Something inside her flickered. Not shock, she had expected this, but something else. Weariness, disappointment, hurt. She inhaled slowly. I see. I am sorry, he whispered. He reached for her, but stopped himself, remembering her rules. She folded her arms as if bracing against a cold wind. I knew this would happen. I should not have agreed to help you. This world always does the same thing. It uses women until they break. Her eyes glistened, but she did not blink. You said you would protect me, and instead you signed another paper. Evan closed his eyes in pain. Maya, it is not what you think. I did it to keep the company alive, to keep thousands from losing their jobs. She nodded once, but her voice was flat. And I am the acceptable sacrifice. He flinched. Maya picked up her bag, slipping the notebook inside. I should go. I have to look after my mother. She walked toward the elevator. Evan followed instinctively. Maya, please. I never wanted to hurt you. She stepped inside the elevator and finally looked at him full on. You did not hurt me tonight, Evan. This place did. And you let it happen. The elevator doors slid shut. He stood there long after she disappeared. That night, Maya returned home to find neighbors whispering outside her door. Someone had leaked the article to the local community Facebook group. People stared. Someone muttered that she was disgusting. Her mother sat on the couch holding the newspaper printout with shaking hands. Maya, my God, what is happening? Maya sank beside her, trying to hold herself together as her mother cried. Meanwhile, in his penthouse, Evan paced until dawn, replaying every moment of the board meeting, every word he had signed. He saw her bruised palms again, her steady eyes, her voice, and he realized with devastating clarity that he had betrayed the only person who had never betrayed him. He pressed a shaking hand to his chest where panic threatened to take over, but this time it was not fear of headlights or screeching tires. It was fear of losing her, all because he had been too much a CEO and not enough a man. And somewhere across the city, Maya lay awake, staring at her ceiling, whispering into the darkness, I should have never gone back. Yet beneath the pain, something inside her whispered an even deeper truth. Losing Evan hurt more than it should have. And that was the scariest part of all. Rock bottom did not arrive with an explosion. It came quietly, like a slow suffocation, the kind that steals breath, before either of them realized they were drowning. For Evan, the world dimmed the moment the elevator doors closed on Maya. He stood in the hallway for a full minute, unable to move, as if her absence had sucked the oxygen from the building. When he finally walked back into his office, everything felt wrong. The air felt too sharp, the silence too loud, the city skyline outside his window too bright and indifferent. His chest tightened, the familiar signs of panic building. But without Maya's voice guiding him back, he felt himself slipping. He pressed a hand to the glass, trying to focus on the temperature, the solidity, anything that might anchor him. It did not work. His breathing fractured, his vision blurred. He sank into the nearest chair, gripping the armrests until his knuckles whitened. Whispering the words Maya had once used, breathe, Evan, breathe, but they did not calm him. They only reminded him she was not there. Meanwhile, across the city, Maya sat in her bedroom, listening to the muffled arguments of neighbors through thin apartment walls, while her mother slept restlessly in the next room. The article had spread farther than she'd imagined. Friends texted with forced concern, employers withdrew applications. She had long awaited someone she had not heard from in years, sent a message simply reading, I knew you would end up like this. Maya turned off her phone and curled her knees to her chest. Anger simmered beneath her ribs, but exhaustion won. She felt hollow, as if the world had cracked around her, and she had slipped between the pieces. She wanted to cry, but the tears would not come. They never came when she needed them. She had learned long ago how to be quiet in her suffering. Her mother's low fever worsened, and Maya spent the night running cool cloths along her forehead, whispering reassurances she did not believe. When dawn arrived gray and damp, she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty coffee mug, wondering how her life had spiraled into this storm again. She wished she could hate Evan. It would be easier. But when she replayed the meeting in her head, she did not see malice. She saw a man cornered by wolves, choosing the only option he believed could keep everyone standing, even if it broke him in the process. And she hated that she understood him. Evan, however, spiraled deeper into his own darkness. Without Maya at his side, the walls of his penthouse seemed to close in. The crash replayed again and again. Every time he closed his eyes, the screech of metal, the shattering glass, the choking smoke, then Maya running through the rain, pulling him out, telling him to stay awake. But now in the memory, she walked away, after saving him, leaving him lying alone on the highway. The image pierced him. By the third day without her, the nightmares intensified. He woke soaked in sweat, stumbling out of bed, unable to catch his breath. He tried the breathing exercises she taught him, but they slipped through his fingers like water without her steady presence. He tried to immerse himself in work, but his office felt foreign. Colleagues watched him with nervous curiosity, unsure how to approach him. Caldwell smirked whenever their paths crossed. Evan's temper grew brittle sharp. During a call with investors, he froze mid-sentence, unable to speak, his voice fractured. Someone asked if he needed a break. He ended the call abruptly ashamed. That evening he sat in his car in the underground garage, staring at the steering wheel, unable to move. The hum of nearby engines triggered memories of headlights bearing down on him. His breathing quickened, his heart thrashed. He pressed his palms to his eyes, but the panic climbed higher. He reached for his phone. Handshaking hovered over Maya's name but did not call. He did not deserve her help. He had sacrificed her to save a company that did not deserve saving. Eventually, the panic subsided enough for him to drive home, but he did so slowly, clutching the wheel tight, as if the world might collapse at any second. Maya, meanwhile, reached her own breaking point on the 5th day. Her mother's medical bills increased. Her former workplace refused to issue a correction statement. People whispered behind her back at the grocery store. She kept her head down, but the weight pressed heavily. She had been strong for too long. She applied to new jobs, but each interview ended the same. The employer skirting around the scandal, asking vague questions about professionalism, tone, reputation. She walked home after each rejection rain, soaking through her jacket, and wondered how she could climb out of the hole she kept falling into. The distance between her and Evan stretched like miles, though they were only a 20-minute drive apart. But emotionally, they were on opposite sides of a void neither knew how to cross. Evan spent nights sitting on his balcony, staring at the rain-soaked city and thinking about her. The memory of her standing beside him at the gala, telling him to breathe, haunted him. Her courage had always outshone his. She had fought harassment with no support, defended colleagues while risking her own job, dragged him from a burning car, shielded him from cameras, guided him through panic, and asked for nothing in return. And he had let her be destroyed because signing one sheet of paper felt easier than confronting the darkness he had allowed Caldwell to cultivate in his company. The guilt became unbearable. On the 6th night, Evan found himself holding a printed copy of the statement he had signed. The words blurred mocking, distancing from former employee Maya Ellis, false associations, no involvement with executive leadership, a lie disguised as protection. He crushed the paper in his fist and threw it across the room, trembling. He whispered into the empty penthouse, "I am so sorry, Maya," so quietly. He was not sure if the walls even heard him. Maya sat in her apartment, simultaneously remembering the same man who had broken her and saved her and frightened her and steadied her. She thought about his panic, shaking through him, behind closed doors, his voice cracking when he said he would protect her, his eyes pleading in the elevator, his breath catching when cameras flashed. She thought about the shards of strength hiding beneath all that fragility. And despite everything she missed him, that terrified her more than any gossip. On the 7th day, everything changed. Evan received a call from a private investigator he had quietly hired after the board meeting. The investigator spoke with urgency. Caldwell is building a case to frame Maya for leaking confidential documents. He has planted false evidence. If this goes through, she could face real charges. Evan's blood turned to ice. The investigator continued. Someone needs to warn her, soon. Evan did not hesitate. He grabbed his keys, ignoring the tremor in his hands. He ran to the elevator, breathing fast but determined. As the doors slid shut, he saw his reflection in the mirrored wall, exhausted, shaken, but fiercely resolute. For the first time since the crash, his fear was not for himself. It was for her. Across the city, Maya packed a small bag, planning to leave Seattle for a while, maybe stay with a friend, maybe disappear until the storm passed. She zipped the bag closed, her hands trembling. When a soft knock sounded at her door, she froze. Her heart pounded. Her legs shook. Slowly, she walked toward the sound. She opened the door. Evan stood there drenched from rain, breathing hard, eyes burning with urgency and regret. Maya felt her throat tighten. Evan swallowed, then spoke in a raw, desperate whisper. "Maya, please listen. You are in danger, and I cannot let you face it alone." Maya froze in the doorway, staring at the man she had spent a week trying to forget and failing miserably. Rain dripped from his hair, darkening his shirt, clinging to his shoulders. His breath came in sharp pulls, as if he had sprinted the entire way. His eyes told the truth before his mouth did. Fear, desperation, and something else, something she tried not to name. Maya finally found her voice, though it felt unsteady. "Evan, what are you doing here?" He stepped inside, only when she backed away from the door, his movements tense, as if he expected her to push him back out at any second. His hands shook slightly when he pulled a damp folder from his jacket. "Caldwell is trying to frame you for leaking internal documents. He planted evidence. If he succeeds, you could be arrested." Her stomach knotted. "Arrested? That's insane." Evan's voice cracked with urgency. "Maya, he is doing this because he knows you are vulnerable now, because I allowed him the space to do it." Maya gripped the edge of the counter to stay upright as the weight of his words hit her. She wanted to scream, but exhaustion smothered her voice. Her mother coughed from the bedroom, and Maya flinched. She stepped toward the hallway, but Evan gently touched her arm, stopping her. Not forcefully, just enough to get her attention. His voice gentled. "I am so sorry, Maya. I should have protected you the moment you came to me. Everything that has happened to you is because I was too afraid to stand up to them." Her eyes filled with heat and hurt. She pulled her arm away. "Evan, you signed that statement. You let them destroy me." He swallowed, visibly pained. "I know, and I have regretted it every second since." "What is there to regret?" Maya whispered bitterly. "You made your choice." He shook his head fiercely. "No, I made a mistake. I chose fear, but now I am choosing you." Maya blinked at the words, unable to disguise the jolt they sent through her. Evan stepped closer carefully. "I came here to warn you, but I also came here because I cannot let you disappear, thinking you are alone in this. You are not anymore." Maya wanted to believe him. A part of her always had. But she stared at the folder in his hands, knowing that fear was no longer the biggest threat. Reality was. Evan opened the folder, revealing pictures of false emails printed, text message chains, and forged signatures, all linking her to non-existent leaks. Caldwell had been meticulous. Maya's breath caught. "Oh my God." Evan nodded, jaw clenched. "Maya, if this spreads, You will not only lose every job opportunity, you could face actual charges. I will not let that happen." She looked up at him, a storm in her eyes. "What can you possibly do, Evan? You already showed them you would cut me loose to save yourself." His face fractured with pain, but instead of defending himself, he said something she did not expect. "Then let me fix it. Let me fight for you the way you fought for me." Her chest tightened sharply. Fight how he met her gaze with a steadiness she had never seen from him, not even before the crash. "I am calling a press conference. Today, the board will hate me. Investors will rage. Caldwell will try to bury me. But I am not letting them bury you." Maya's lips parted in shock. "Evan, no, you cannot go against the board. It will destroy your career." He shook his head. "I nearly died in that crash. And when I opened my eyes, you were the only person who ran toward me. Everyone else filmed me drowning. You pulled me out. You saved my life. And now I am going to save yours." Maya's voice cracked. "Evan, you do not owe me that." He stepped closer. "I do. And more." He looked at her with ache and truth woven in his expression. "I owe you honesty. I owe you protection. I owe you my apology. And I owe you my courage." She stared at him, the anger inside her softening, though she did not want it to, because he meant every word, and because no one had ever fought for her before. Not like this. Evan opened the apartment door again. "Come with me. Let the world see the truth with you standing beside me." She hesitated, her heart torn between fear and something dangerously close to hope. Her mother's weak voice floated from the bedroom. "Maya, honey, is everything okay?" Maya exhaled shakily. She touched her mother's arm, whispered she would return. Soon, then grabbed her jacket and followed Evan out the door. The car ride to the downtown media center was silent, but not empty. Evan's hands trembled slightly on the wheel, but his jaw was set with purpose. Maya watched him, wondering how a man so powerful could also look so breakable, and how she could feel safer beside him than she ever had in her life. When they arrived, security guards and reporters swarmed instantly. Camera flashes burst like lightning. Shouting erupted. "Mr. Brooks, is it true? Your former employee leaked documents. Evan is the woman with you, the one from the scandal." Maya looked away, overwhelmed, but Evan placed a steady hand at the small of her back, guiding her gently but firmly toward the stage. His touch was an anchor she had not expected but desperately needed. They stepped onto the podium. The noise below faded slowly as every lens focused on him. Evan's eyes scanned the room. Then he leaned toward the microphone. "Thank you for coming." His voice carried through the hall, steady but heavy with truth. "There have been allegations against a woman named Maya Ellis, someone trying to destroy her reputation, someone working from within my company." Maya's breath hitched. Evan continued, "These claims are false, completely false. Maya did not leak anything. She did not manipulate me. She did not use me. She saved my life, both literally and in ways none of you know." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Evan held nothing back. "I was in a car crash. People filmed me dying but did nothing. Maya ran into the rain and pulled me out. She shielded me. She stayed when everyone else walked away. And then my own company punished her for it." Cameras flashed wildly. Evan's voice deepened. She was fired after standing up for another woman being harassed. Not for misconduct, not for insubordination, for protecting someone who needed help. And we failed her. My board failed her. And I failed her most of all. Maya's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Reporters whispered fiercely, scribbling notes. Evan took a breath, then said the words that would change everything. Her character is not in question. Mine is. The room erupted. Evan raised a hand, silencing them. Today I am reinstating her record, clearing her name, and firing the man responsible for this entire fabricated attack. Caldwell, have your security escort him out. Gasps echoed as Caldwell, who had been lurking near the back, turned white with fury. Security guards moved quickly, surrounding him. Caldwell shouted, "You will regret this, Brooks." But his voice was drowned by the chaos of reporters. Maya's knees weakened. Evan placed a hand on her back again, steady, warm grounding. Then he leaned closer to the microphone. "She saved my life on the highway, and she saved my soul after." Maya's heart stilled. The room went silent. No flash, no whispers, just breathless stillness. Evan's voice softened into something raw. "And I will not let anyone hurt her again." Maya felt her chest expand painfully, as if her heart were learning how to beat all over again. The crowd erupted with questions, but security quickly guided them out the back exit. In the quiet hallway, Evan turned to her expecting anger or confusion or distance. What he found instead broke him. Maya's eyes shone with tears she had been holding for far too long. "Evan," she whispered, voice trembling, "why would you risk everything for me?" He stepped closer, his voice barely above a breath. "Because losing you was the only thing I was truly afraid of." Maya swallowed hard, unable to stop the tear that finally fell. And when Evan gently brushed it away with the back of his fingers, something inside her shifted forever. The moment they stepped out of the media center, the city felt different, as if Seattle itself paused to absorb what had just happened. Rain misted lightly in the air, soft and cold, brushing their skin, while the roar of reporters faded behind them with every step. Evan kept one hand near Maya, without touching her, unsure if she wanted the closeness, yet unable to distance himself from her. His heart hammered in his chest, not with panic this time, but with something deeper, something raw. Maya walked silently beside him, trying to steady her breathing. The world had just watched a billionaire burn down his own walls for her sake. She did not know how to hold that kind of truth yet. They reached the parking garage where the echo of their footsteps filled the dim concrete space. Evan stopped, finally facing her, the quiet around them, trembling with words that had been buried too long. Maya hugged her jacket tighter, suddenly aware of how cold she felt. Her voice was soft, careful. "Evan, what you did in there, that was reckless, brave but reckless." He exhaled a shaky breath, running a hand through his damp hair. "I know, the board will fight me. Investors will riot. Caldwell will drag my name through every corner of the internet." Maya lifted her eyes to him. "Then why did you do it?" Evan's gaze locked onto hers with an intensity that softened and sharpened all at once. "Because the idea of you being hurt again was worse than losing everything." She inhaled sharply, the truth striking her like a heartbeat. Evan stepped a little closer, his voice gentling. "I let you walk out of that building alone. I let fear control me. I let people like Caldwell decide your worth. That will never happen again." Maya shook her head, her voice thick. "You cannot promise that. The world does not change overnight. People like him always find power somewhere." His jaw tightened. "Then I will fight them everywhere." She stared at him, searching his face for arrogance or savior complex or ego. But she found none. Only sincerity threaded with vulnerability. She whispered, "Evan, saving me in public is one thing. But saving yourself, how will you survive the fallout? He took another step, closing the space between them. I survived the crash. I survived the panic. I survived losing every illusion I thought made me strong. But I will not survive losing you again. Her breath caught. Evan. He reached for her hand, hesitated, then finally took it slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers wrapped around hers, warm, sure trembling. That small contact ignited something sharp and tender between them. Maya looked down at their joined hands and felt a rush of emotion, so sudden she swayed. Evan moved closer, steadying her with a gentle grip on her arm. Their faces were inches apart. She whispered, barely breathing, "You should not touch me like this." "Why not?" he murmured. "Because it makes it hard to think." His lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. "Then let me think for both of us for a moment." She opened her mouth to object, but the words dissolved when he leaned just slightly closer. Maya, his voice barely a whisper. "I meant what I said in there. Every word." She felt her heart stumble. "You said a lot of things. Which part did you mean most?" Evan breathed out long and uneven. "The part where I admitted my character is the one in question. The part where I admitted my fear. And the part where I said you saved my soul." Maya closed her eyes for a second, overwhelmed. When she spoke, her voice cracked. "Evan, you cannot say things like that when you are scared." He cupped the side of her face, gently thumb, brushing the faint tear track she had missed. "I am not scared now. I am awake, and I am done hiding how I feel." The confession hit her like warm sunlight, breaking through dark clouds. But fear fluttered inside her. "Evan, if this is just gratitude, if you think you owe me something." He shook his head before she could finish. "Gratitude is what I felt the night you dragged me out of the rain. What I feel now is something else, something I do not know how to name, but I know it is real." She tried to speak, but her breath hitched. Her voice, when it came, was almost a whisper. "You hurt me, Evan, more than you know." "I know." His voice broke, and I hate myself for it. "But tell me something, Maya. Did you stop caring about me when I failed you?" Her eyes lifted slowly, meeting his. "No." And the honesty in that one word shattered the last distance between them. Evan stepped forward, his forehead gently touching hers. Their breaths mingling, their hands pressing together between them. "Then let me earn back every part of that care." She trembled under the gravity of his words. "Evan, you do not have to earn anything. You just have to be honest. Always." His eyes softened. "Then let me be honest with you now." He lifted her chin with the lightest touch, guiding her to look directly at him. "Maya, the truth is I need you in my life. Not because of fear, not because of panic, not because of survival, but because every moment I spent without you felt wrong, empty, like I was waiting for something I could not name until now." Her breath quivered. "And what is it you think you were waiting for?" Evan swallowed, taking in the way. Her eyes glistened in the dim garage light. "You." The word was simple and devastating. Maya felt her chest ache with something she had held back for too long. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely steady. "Evan, I am afraid." Of what? He whispered. "Of us. Of wanting something that could break me again. Of letting you close." He stepped closer, his hands gently holding her arms, grounding her. "Then let me break every fear before it breaks you. Let me shoulder the weight this time. Let me try." She stared up at him, heart trembling beneath her ribs. And then something inside her gave way, like a locked door finally clicking open. Maya whispered his name like a confession. Evan. He leaned in slowly, giving her every second to pull away his lips, trembling inches from hers. Maya, if you do not want this, tell me now. She did not speak. She did not step back. Instead, she lifted her hand to his face fingertips, brushing the line of his jaw, the touch so soft it made him inhale sharply. That was all the answer he needed. Their lips met gently at first, a tremble of breath, an ache and truth. Then deeper, as if every unspoken word, every suppressed longing, every wound and every hope finally found a home. It was not a kiss of passion. It was a kiss of recognition. A kiss that said, I have been searching for you without knowing it. A kiss that said, I am yours if you want me. When they finally pulled apart, their foreheads remained pressed together, their breaths uneven, their hands still clasped, as if afraid the moment might vanish. Maya whispered Evan, what are we doing? He smiled softly, voice thick with emotion, finally telling the truth. And in that quiet underground garage, with rain still falling outside and chaos waiting beyond the walls, their love finally spoke for the first time. 1 year later, the crash felt like a distant storm that had once torn through their lives only to leave behind a strange, breathtaking calm. Seattle glowed under a pale gold morning sun, the kind that softened the skyline and painted the glass towers with quiet warmth, as if the entire city had chosen a gentler palette for the day. Evan Brooks stood on the old freeway overpass, where everything had changed, the place where twisted metal and broken glass had once marked the beginning of his unraveling and, unexpectedly, the beginning of his salvation. Now there was nothing but clean pavement, humming traffic, and the smell of wet concrete from last night's rain. No smoke, no flashing lights, no blood, no strangers filming behind phone screens. Just wind and memory. Maya stepped beside him, her jacket pulled tight against the early breeze, her hair loose around her shoulders, catching the light with every shift of movement. She looked at the freeway, then at him, and a quiet smile touched her lips. Hard to believe this is where it all began, she said softly. Evan slipped his hand into hers, the gesture natural, effortless. It did not tremble anymore. Nothing in him trembled the way it once did, not when she was beside him. I think about it every day, he said. Not the crash, not the fear, not even the panic. Just you running toward me when everyone else ran away. She looked at him, her eyes warm but thoughtful. You make it sound heroic, Evan. It was. You were. She laughed under her breath and shook her head. I just did what anyone should have done. He turned to her fully, his voice low. No, you did what only you would have done. She squeezed his hand gently, but the weight of the moment softened her expression into something quieter, something deeper. After a long silence, she asked, Are you ready for today? He took a steady breath. For the first time in my life, yes. They left the overpass and headed downtown, where a crowd had already begun gathering in front of the converted municipal building. A polished bronze plaque gleamed over the entrance reading Ellis Protection Fund. 1 year ago, Maya had been swallowed by workplace abuse accusations and corporate manipulation until the truth finally broke through like light through smoked glass. Today, that truth had its own institution, its own voice, its own legacy, a foundation designed to protect workers who had been silenced, to investigate retaliation, to fund legal aid for women like the colleague Maya had once defended, to train companies on ethical structures and accountability. And although Evan had funded the majority of the project, He insisted the name honor the person who had turned his entire worldview inside out. He held the door open for her as they entered the lobby where volunteers moved between tables, setting up brochures and banners. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, illuminating framed photographs on the walls, each one capturing moments from the year that followed their press conference. Maya standing before a panel of senators, speaking with calm conviction. Evan quietly supporting her from the audience. The day Caldwell's indictment was announced, the day the first workplace retaliation victim won her lawsuit with legal representation, funded by the foundation. The day the board voted to restructure Brooks Global with new ethics oversight. The day Evan returned to driving again alone and steady the last remnants of PTSD loosening their grip. The day Maya received an award for advocacy work she had never imagined doing. Maya paused in front of a photograph of herself shaking hands with a young woman in a grocery store uniform, the girl crying into her shoulder after winning her case. Maya felt a tightness in her chest. I still cannot believe how far this has come. Evan slipped his arm gently around her waist. You built this. She leaned into him slightly. We built it. He kissed the top of her head, a soft, unhurried gesture. A few volunteers approached, greeting Maya with warm smiles, calling her director Ellis, already asking where she wanted the podium placed, or if she preferred the guest list arranged alphabetically. Evan stepped back, letting her take charge, watching her with quiet pride. She moved through the room with a confidence she had earned through fire. A woman who knew her worth because she had rebuilt it piece by piece. When she finished directing the setup, she returned to him. They stepped into the quiet side hallway, away from the bustle. Evan reached into his coat, pulling out a small velvet box but kept it closed in his hand. Maya noticed and her heart gave a startled skip. Evan, his voice lowered into something tender. Do you remember the day you told me I did not have to earn you, that I just had to be honest? She nodded slowly, breath catching. You were shaking that day, she whispered. I am not shaking now. He opened the box, revealing a simple silver ring. Elegant, understated, exactly the kind of thing Maya would choose herself. Her eyes softened immediately. Evan. He reached for her hands, lifting them between his own. I am not asking for an answer today. I am asking you to wear this as a promise, that I will always protect your name, your heart, and your truth, that I will never let fear choose for me again, that I will stand with you in everything you build, and when you are ready, if you are ever ready, I will ask you to marry me, but only when you know it is what you want. Maya's breath trembled, her eyes filling with a warmth that ached. Evan, I do not need time to know what I want. I already know. His eyes widened just slightly, like the moment of a man realizing hope had become real. She touched his face gently. You are what I want, not because you saved me, because you let me save you. Something in him broke open then, a slow release, like a weight sliding off his chest after years of pressing down. He slid the ring gently onto her finger, his touch reverent. It fit perfectly. She looked at it then, at him, tears glistening but not falling. He leaned in, kissing her forehead, softly lingering there. I love you, Maya Ellis. She closed her eyes, letting the words settle inside her like seeds sinking into soil. I love you too, Evan Brooks. They stood there for a long moment, the world narrowing to just breath and quiet and warmth. Then one of the volunteers peeked down the hall. Director Ellis, they are ready for you. Maya squeezed Evan's hand, once then stepped forward toward the podium where dozens of workers' survivors, students, and reporters were gathering, waiting to hear her speak. Evan walked beside her but remained behind the podium, letting her take the stage. She looked at him one last time. His nod was small but steady, saying without words, "You lead. I am right here." And she did. Maya stood before the crowd, voice strong story, honest eyes bright with purpose, telling them about the night of the crash, the lies, the retaliation, the fear, the healing, and the truth that grew from the wreckage. She ended with a line that would later be quoted across the country. "Sometimes saving someone else becomes the way you save yourself." The room erupted in applause. Evan felt something in his chest swell until it almost hurt. After the ceremony, they returned briefly to the freeway, where evening light streaked gold across the pavement. Cars rushed by, unknowing, unbothered, just part of the world continuing on. Maya took his hand, her ring catching the last flare of sunlight. "Remember the night you almost died," she murmured. Evan looked at her, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "That was the night my life actually began." They stood there in the glow of Seattle's golden hour, the city humming softly around them. Two souls who had been broken and rebuilt, not by wealth or power or luck, but by courage, truth, and the quiet, unwavering act of choosing each other every day. And as the light dipped behind the skyline, turning the sky into a watercolor of rose and gold, they walked forward together, leaving the past behind, not forgotten, but transformed into the story of how a girl saved a billionaire and how he learned to save her right back. Thank you for staying with this story until the very last moment, because if you reached this point, it means something inside. You connected with Evan and Maya, their pain, their healing, their courage, and their love. Stories like this are more than entertainment. They remind us that even the most powerful people can break, and even the ones who feel invisible can become the reason someone learns how to live again. If this story held your heart even for a few seconds, then I want to ask you for something simple but powerful. Before you go, take a moment to like this video, because the more you engage, the more YouTube pushes these kinds of stories to people who might need them without even knowing it. And if you felt a spark, a pull, or an ache somewhere along the way, then drop a comment right now and tell us what moment hit you hardest. Was it the crash, the betrayal, the board meeting, the press conference, the confession in the garage, or the epilogue where they finally chose each other without fear? Your comment is the lifeline that keeps this channel alive. It is how we know what you want more of. And if you want to see more stories like this, Billionaire Love Healing Arcs Redemption, Second Chances Women Who Save Themselves, and Men Who Learn to Love the Right Way, then make sure you are subscribed with notifications on, because we create stories like this every single week for viewers across the world. Tell us where you are watching from too, because our community is built from every corner of the map, and your voice matters more than you know. And if you want to support the channel even more, share this video with someone who loves emotional storytelling, because you never know whose heart might need a story about grace, growth, and love that refuses to give up. Remember, this channel is more than fiction. It is a place for people who believe that even after the crash, after the lies, after the panic, after the heartbreak, there is still a way to rise again. There is still a way to choose honesty over fear and healing over pride. There is still a way to begin again. So thank you for being here. Thank you for giving space to this story. And thank you for believing in a kind of love that does not arrive perfect, but is built piece by piece with courage and truth. Until the next story, stay safe, stay kind, and never forget that the right person will always run toward you even when the world turns away.